why don't you catch myself and anyone who might have missed last week up on all the news?
Well, absolutely. Cameron Searle having, from his also last win, also in Belgium Grand Prix a couple of years back, he's gone on to clinch into another race win onto his collection now, which now makes it 5 in a row for Cameron, and now heads over into Singapore effectively after leaving off from the European rounds as having a win streak for the ages. He has pretty much put his other hand onto that trophy now, and he's hoping to try and lift it today. A strong win would be all good for him. Joe himself has managed to catapult himself up into second and still tries to fend off from, William Mad Dog. Ben had his first retirement actually in Spa as well. So that was also very interesting from what happened. And it was a very exciting Belgium Grand Prix. But indeed, with all the European rounds now concluded, now it's a sprint to the finish now, with the remaining 3 races, including the sprint race at Las Vegas, all being street circuits. And Cameron Searle has actually yet to win an anti-clockwise circuit. The last time that he raced an anti-clockwise circuit was back in Baku, which he unfortunately collided with the wall. So interested to see whether if Cameron can, make amends with his past here today.
Well, in terms of the championship fight, you're right. It's almost done and dusted for everything. Already, it's sort of half been announced that Cameron is the champion, 2 hands on the trophy. I believe drop rounds have essentially crowned him at the moment after pretty much winning ever since the retirement in Baku. He sits on 258 points after the Spa event. And now this week in Singapore, he can make it beyond any question. He's the winner of this season. It'll be his coronation this week around the Marina Bay circuit, the home of the original night race, as it likes to tout itself, but also home of Crashgate. So you'll have to sort of take everything with a pinch of salt. I'm not being invited to the Singapore Grand Prix. But,
well, we know if Kate crashes, then we'll know why.
Well, he says at the moment that there is a bit of a thunderstorm going on around Cameron, so if he does disconnect, it is not the AI this time. It is the weather itself that has decided to ruin him. In terms of 2 weeks ago, it was the weather that also seemed to trip up a few drivers when I was last on commentary. But I digress. Back onto commentary and back onto the championship itself. The fight for that second place, it was sort of, as soon as Cameron got onto a roll of things, it was all going to be about the fight for second place. It's almost the 2023 championship as well, where all the excitement is going on just behind the leader. Joe and Josh in the 100, above 150, 162 for Joe, and 159 for Josh. Mad Dog 130, Ben 115, and then you've got a whole group that is closely contesting 6th to 9th. In the championship, 105 for Last Gen Newt, Geek as well, Dasher on 100. He is the hero this week. I've read the contestants for the Singapore Grand Prix, and Ender Epic in the other papaya, who's not here this week, so that 9th might be up for grabs for guys like Alpha who are in the lobby. This is going to be a time to catch up. We have everyone in. It is a very small Grand Prix today. It is only 12 drivers joining us on the circuit, and hopefully it won't be the same around Las Vegas. Hopefully we can pack the grid and maybe cause a little bit of commotion here around Marina Bay. 19 turns in this variation, I believe, if we are going by the 2023 variation. But I can't remember on this circuit in the F1 23 if they were still using the 2022 version or if the changes had been announced before. So I'm sure the track map is going to remind me of that. Of course, taking out a few corners. But AO, I think we were talking about qualifying before here as we are starting to approach it. What are we thinking in terms of qualifying times? I mean, you said 129s for the top drivers in this on the grid. Are we going to be looking in that ballpark as well?
Yeah, I think we will, honestly, here in this case, because you've mentioned before from your practice runs, 131s. So around that echelon, especially street circuit as big as Singapore, can expect the top ones to cut that down to just about a second and a bit. So for Cameron Searle, he has not gotten pole position in about 2 races, so he's looking to try and, reclaim that. And with all that, I think Singapore is one of the more important of the calendars for him to get pole position in, because it's in that outside line heading heading into turn 1, it's got so much more speed carrying through that, because if you're the inside line, like in P2 or in P4, your speed is effectively compromised. And with that, you're not going to be able to get as much positions gained as you more or less possibly can. And I think really starting position is going to be really crucial here in Singapore, because if you navigate first through that first sector before the first DRS straight, I think it's effectively your race to win, actually.
So already we have drivers heading out onto the grid, the usual suspects heading out early. Last Gen New in that Papaya will be the first one out, hoping to make an impact on the timing sheet. As we sure this is going to remind me of full track map. Yes, this is definitely going to be the 2023 variation, where we take out a few corners around the 16, what used to be the 16, 17, 18 sort of long-term chicane, where you go right, left, and then left again to get back onto another straight before you end up on the actual turns 16 and 17 before you go onto that quick left-hander onto the home stretch. So, yeah, it is going to be Last Gen New leading us out. We have ZZ on camera as well, the other Aston Martin, as Joe, his teammate, will be hoping to try and get a little bit further. We don't have Josh tonight in terms of driving, so this is a great opportunity for Joe to go into the sprint race and Las Vegas round with a mammoth of a lead over the only person, really, who could be challenging for that spot other than Mad Dog.
Yeah, absolutely. Coming off from Spa, which some might say that it kind of was his podium to lose, with a bit of unfortunate and having damage in Spa. He's managed to recover very well up into fourth, but didn't do well. Well, he did make his best chances, but Mad Dog and Dasher, though, got their first podiums in their season. And here with Last Gen Newt, he's starting his fly nap now. So all that in the title contention for second place, I think it's really going to ramp up if both Dasher and Mad Dog both have good performances here as well, similar to how it was before, then we could probably see them into this very competent second place battle, I must say.
Last Gen Newt here, with Josh being out, he's going to be possibly looking for a good points haul to get himself up there and possibly challenge for that podium as we look towards Las Vegas. He is quite far behind, 54 points, but with Josh not racing, if Last Gen Newt sits on the podium this race, that's the lead cut down by half for him in terms of the points scoring tally. And then, of course, got the sprint and the main event, which could get him onto the podium as he heads across the bridge, down into third gear. Just want to coast around this corner and out towards this straight, heading towards turn number 14. And then quick, just a slight turn, heading into 15, of course, sitting with the purple sector, the first one to get through that sector of the track. As he heads into the third sector, down towards turn number 16, onto 17. Very quick right, left, out towards 18, and down towards the home stretch. What is going to be the time that we look at for Last Gen New? It's looking like a 129.4 for him to start things off. That's a good way to start proceedings.
That's actually really strong. Last Gen Newt is hopefully to continue on with his podium chances, though. It's easy with about 6/10 just off of Newt. But Last Gen did really well back in Montreal, which has a little bit some of the characteristics here to Singapore, being it very fast and having a lot of 90-degree corners. So might be a big advantage to him as Mad Dog gets for 29.3, a tenth faster than Last Gen Newt. He's continuing on from his first podium back in Spa, and what a great way to cap that off.
Well. Chaotic, teammate of Mad Dog, also putting a lap time in. Would be about 1.6 off the pace to start things off, but we've got plenty of qualifying to go. Still another 13.5 minutes for all these drivers. Everyone out on track. It's only Geek staying in pit lane, and Joe putting it on pole at the moment. 1:28 to start things off, and of course we've got Cameron on the inters to start off his evening. Unfortunately, as I say every week, the joke that I always like to say, this isn't Creator Series, unfortunately, there's no extra points for Inter's pole.
No, absolutely not. Alpha just got a little bit squeaky coming out from that final corner, though. Still enough to get himself up into fourth, but still just about 4 tenths lower than his teammate of last gen Newt. Finn's done pretty well actually to keep up that consistency, so he's still hoping to score some very valuable points if he does finish, as Tom is going to be starting his flat up now. The interesting thing about Cameron Searle, though, is that, again, no pole positions for the last 2 races. So starting on inters is now going to be a little bit more of a hindrance towards his pole positions than it is going to be funny. So not entirely sure what tricks on the sleeve Cameron Searle might have for this time round, but he really, really needs that pole position, though, Alistair.
Well, if he does want to pull it out, I did hear while I was doing my drives, he did get an extremely, extremely fast lap. I'm not sure if he's running the same setup, considering going straight into the race afterwards. But there is something a lot more in his locker than a 135, I can tell you that. And if he does decide to have that setup on, it's let's just say Joe's time looks slow in comparison. It's a ridiculous timing he got on it. But he might get me afterwards if I actually say what it was.
Q2018 Lewis Hamilton pole position moment.
It kind of was, but it wasn't in quality situation. It was just time trial, so that's why I think he's most likely holding back.
Joe is fast though. He's 8 tenths faster than Mad Dog though to take provisional pole. So that's going to be quite a high target for Cameron Searle to do. But Tom Foolery though up into 5th with only 0.2 off of Alpha. So that's really good there from the Mercedes driver, I must say, as last year he's going to be starting his actually great improvement from him, 3 tenths faster, promotes himself up into 2nd, beats Mad Dog. I think those two are going to be on a bit of a kerfuffle for the rest of the qualifying session to see who will be more or less the best of the rest now, as Cameron Searle, as it looks as he enters into the pits as well. This is going to be very interesting as well. We don't usually talk about pit entries here in tracks usually before, but Singapore's pit entry is like no other. If you overcook it, you effectively have to do an entire other lap with it. So that's going to be interesting to see how they'll navigate as Cameron Searle's car swiftly goes in, just about halfway through of the qualifying session left remaining, as K-Lock navigates through the 3rd sector. Little bit contact with the wall, coming out for the double apex of the final 2 corners now. Crosses through the line. It is an improvement, but still only just 8th. Still 10 minutes left to go.
Yeah, you're already seeing the street race effect happening in terms of these qualifiers as Easy approaches. No, going into the pit lane very carefully, very gingerly entering the pit lane to make sure he doesn't overcook it. But in terms of all these drivers, you're already seeing the effect of a street circuit on all of them. The close walls, you have to be careful, and the best driver at the moment has a 6/10 lead over the person in P2. That's a ridiculous gap considering the rest of the season we've seen maybe a 10th, 2/10 in terms of difference between the driver sitting on pole and maybe the top 6, 7 a few times. We had some very close qualifying, especially around, I remember Canada being extremely close for the top few. But now take a look at the street circuit that we have here around Singapore. Much closer walls. The margin for error is so much smaller. Though those walls are going to be killer for a lot of these drivers today, I reckon, and there's only 12 of them. But you already have a gap of about 1 second plus, 2 seconds down at Chaotic, 3 seconds with Finn between Joe and the rest of these qualifiers. It's ridiculous. And that's still about a 10th, still a second between last gen Newt and Geek as it stands at the moment. So we're not going to have a very, very close qualifying in terms of who leads the way. I reckon this is still going to be Cameron versus Joe for the top spot in qualifying on the timing sheet. But the rest of today is Dasher, someone who's been on pole quite a few times this
Invalid.
season.
Invalid, but he would have actually got pole position though if he didn't invalidate on the lap. He was about a 3/10 faster than Joe from that lap as well. So that was pretty big from Dasher. He's showing he might be able to pull out something, possibly, unless if he did cut the corner. But you are right about Singapore. But the other thing as well, because it is so unforgiving and there's no real runoff, if you collide with the barriers and then your car is immobile on track, that's a guaranteed safety car. So safety car is going to be a really big factor here, because in real life we've got safety cars once every race, and we have seen safety cars here in Singapore before a couple of years back. So I think this is going to be pretty interesting to see how all that will turn in play. So it's not just about the guaranteed pole position, it's also effectively, ironically, because it's not Monaco, a casino.
Well, here we are, the championship leader and basically the champion to be. One last season, and looks like he's going to be winning this season as well, with a 96-point difference between himself and Joe to be made up in 3 races, 2 main events, 1 sprint race. This season is almost done, and we could put a final stamp on it with pole position at Singapore. This entire championship run should remind us of Verstappen's 2023 season, pretty much winning every single race aside from, I believe it was Perez and Sainz winning a race, one at the start, one in the middle. As Joe saying a 128.0, that is fast. And Cameron is going to be set that time to beat as he's starting to approach this last sector. He's through into the last sector, heading down towards turns 16 and 17. Fast right. Slow down into the left, let yourself coast through the corners here, down into turn 18, onto turn 19, and through to the start-finish straight, and it's still not going to be enough with that first run, 128.2, but it's still the front row for Cameron Searle.
It's pretty good to consider it is just his first fastest lap, though. Wow, that was Joe's really, really lucky for a 128.0, though. That is blisteringly fast, though. He's really pulling out all the stops to try and keep this championship fight alive. If he does win and Cameron Searle D and Fs, then it gives him a bit of a better chance now heading into Las Vegas. So that's effectively, I believe, what Joe is hoping to try to happen, and he's really trying to put that moniker onto it with a really strong position here. 1/10 faster than Cameron is blithering impressive.
It was possibly a 52-point gain with a win in the fastest lap for Joe. That still technically puts him in the fight even more with that DNF. But I think it's mostly about drop rounds that has caused this sort of early championship coronation for Cameron at this point in time. Of course, Joe hasn't had didn't have the best start to the season, but he's really turned it on towards the end, which sees him in this P2 fight between himself and Josh. I think today, at least, if he gets the win, that is P2 locked in. That's sort of what's at stake for Joe today. A big P2 or a big win. That could be shutting the door on Josh moving one step up on the podium. But I think Josh not playing today, not driving, I think that's almost curtains in itself going into Las Vegas for him. And it'll be all about trying to keep that P3 spot if he does drive next week.
I think it's very telling that the BUSR has been fairly one of the most boring seasons that we've seen in recent memory. But the BUSR Formula 1.5 Spring Championship has been one of the most exciting championships that we've ever had throughout its history. The fact that we've got so many cars battling out, and Joe maybe had the potential to clinch it now, and an appearance in Las Vegas will all but cement his P2, and it's just proven, like, with his consistency and a bit with his, a bit come out of grips come in Canada, for instance, this would be the dream redemption for Joe, that all he needs to cement. He's done a lot, he's improved vastly so much, and to cap it off with the P2 in the championship, I think he'll be really, really happy with that.
We're seeing probably the last few laps of some of these drivers, some in the pits just waiting a little bit longer. Joe will be actually waiting for Cameron Searle time to come in. He is out on track, and he did have a cool down lap and might be going for it here. He's in sector 2 at the moment, heading into this hairpin just after the bridge. heading down towards turn 14. Just a slight left of turn 15 in sector 3. Could this be the time for Cameron to take back pole position? He would have been a little bit gutted that Joe just moments before got that 128.0 because he would have beaten the original pole position time from Joe, 128.4. Can he beat it now as he goes through the last 2 corners down to the start finish at 127.6? Now that was the lap time I was talking about that I didn't think I could talk about. Just in time trial, got 127, and I think that might have been the first time I ever heard Cameron get excited, and he invalidated it on purpose to make sure it didn't show up beforehand. But that is ridiculous to bring out in quali.
I'm lost for words. That's probably one of the best qualifying performances we've seen with Cameron Stoll in recent memory, and wow. Like, to have that so much of a gain in a track like Marina Bay, I'm actually impressed. Kudos, Cameron. Honestly, well done. You are truly the Ryan Gosling of this BUSR series.
It was a good joke. It lasted a few weeks, but now back onto the Josh's family member jokes in terms of in-game names for Cameron. Is that we literally are getting into the overtime of this qualification. 1:35 remaining on the qualifying clock. People will just about get round in terms of their outlaps, possibly being a little bit too late. It looks like Finn is going to be staying in the pit lane. I reckon that is his qualifying done down in P12. Geek will definitely be wanting to get a better time in P11. He hasn't had much time to prepare for this race. Mad Dog will definitely want to be leapfrogging a few drivers in terms of the standings. It looks like he's not going to be improving here with this lap time, but yeah, he's just moving into the pit lane on this one. He won't have time for another lap, so Mad Dog will be moving into the pit lane and will be remaining P5. What can ZZ do around the last few corners? P9 to P6. Good improvement of 4/10. Leapfrog, quite a few. I think that's Tom, Chaotic, and Alpha, all overtaken by ZZ. The Aston Martin going strong in P6 now.
Really crucial for ZZ as well. He's also in the midst of his own championship battle as well, hoping to better his best result in Baku, I believe, which was P5 if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, it's really been pretty good from him. Slowly the click starts, the clock is slowly ticking down. Everyone is going to be slowly trying to get those last positions potentially gained. Geek is into the pits, as well as Cooksalco as well. Chaotic has retired from the session. He's had a collision with the wall, I believe. No, he's not. They've just both retired in the garage, my bad. 5 seconds are slowly coming down, and that is the qualifying session over, done with now. Cameron is still improving. He's 500ths faster. Oh, no, it's not.
He just entered sector 2, and it did the 3/10 gap. So that is qualifying done. I don't see anyone else improving that time. That is absolutely ridiculous. Joe is still out on track. He's got a small improvement going into sector 2. It's going to be seeing if he can get any faster, any extra time he can. Maybe take a visit into the 127s as well with what he can shave off. But let's be honest, that's a 4/10 difference between himself and Cameron on the top of the timing sheets. He is not going to overcome that gap without an absolutely blistering sector 2 and sector 3. As he does enter sector 2, he takes 2/10 off. Now, this could be an opportunity. Dasher going to cross the line as well. 128, he does take 2/10 off. I reckon that's solidifying P3. But I think my eyes at the moment are on Joe. It's James up to P4. The Scuderia taking the second row. As at the moment, Tom taking 4/10 off. Everyone's starting to improve. But what about Joe going through the last few corners? What can he do in terms of the lap time? Not enough, but that is so close. Wow. 3/10 improvement. 127.6. Almost making me eat my own words. Thinking that no one was going to get close to Cameron. 2 sensational laps by the drivers on the top 2 steps of our qualifying podium.
Oh my word, Joe, where did that come from? He did all that improvement for the final sector as well. All that just slight improvement for the first and second, and get himself up into P2 though. But he's really showing Cameron that his lead is not at all safe here for the Singapore Grand Prix. That was such a great qualifying session, I must say. That was absolutely amazing.
Massive in terms of the. Let me describe it. In terms of Sector 1, I didn't think he was gaining much time. He gained about 38 hundredths of a second. Lap by the Sector 2, he managed to shave off another 2.5 tenths. By the time we got to the end of the lap, 361 thousandths taken off, which is of course about 3.5 tenths of a second. I'm not sure why I extended out so long. I'm tired. So 3.5 tenths taken off to almost get Cameron on the line. It was literally 5 thousandths of a second between the two drivers on the front row. This could be a 2-horse race between the Aston Martin and the Red Bull at the front of the queue. But we're going to have to watch out today. I reckon Singapore is going to be the home of quite a few safety cars, quite a few incidents. We're lucky that the camera at the moment is not showing any, just an absolute deluge down on the track. We're going to be in dry conditions on a track that is known for eating tires. So it's going to be all about the strategy today. It's going to be all about where drivers keeping it out of the wall, staying consistent. Welcome to street tracks. But this one, a little bit more interesting than Monaco, as, yeah, it does eat tires. It's going to be about good strategy today and good undertakes and undercuts and overcuts from the drivers who watch strategies play out. It's going to have to meet good calls if you want to keep your position around this circuit.
Absolutely, with the starting track as well, and as well lack of runoff as well, probably be a bit of luck if the safety car is going to be coming into play. But from this qualifying session here that we're seeing right here, like, Dasher has been pretty comfortable. He might be able to maybe run away with third potentially, but last year it's James Alpha, Mad Dog, and Tom both making last ditch attempts to improve their times, and that's going to be a very exciting battle, I think, for the midfield. And there's lots of big points for them to play because they're all amidst that midfield, trying to break into the top 5 of the championship and cement it and stick it there. So that's going to be very exciting, I must say. I'm really looking forward to this. And with all that strategy to play for, and like how well these tires eat up on the track as well, it's going to be interesting to see like if people are going to be either starting off conservative or if they're going to be starting off very aggressive. So that in itself is a bit to play. How well can you save your tires? How well can you endure it as much? It's a bit of a indecisive decision whether the undercut or the overcut is going to be better around here. I think, given the lack of traffic we have, I probably would imagine the undercut if they manage to clear the traffic very easily. So I think that's what we could probably expect here for today's race. But what are your thoughts, though?
I think to counter that undercut thought, there are going to be a lot of slow drivers. I think traffic is going to be slow today with a lot of people wanting to keep out of the wall. And in that, they have to go slow. They have to relax through these corners. And some drivers could get themselves into some tricky positions. And if you're following behind someone doing that, you are going to be slowed down a bit, especially in a few of these corners. Like if you're going down to turn 1 and you're not quite ready to make that overtake, you're kind of stuck behind this slower driver down until you get to turn number 4 as you go through that first complex of corners. Other sections, like going to turn 13, the hairpin just after the bridge, that's going to be a slow corner for a lot of drivers. There are plenty of straights for people to make overtakes and get past traffic and clear the blue flags. But for me, there is still going to be a lot of moments where they're going to be slowed down. And I think that could offer an opportunity for that undercut to be cancelled out a little bit. We'll have to see how the field spreads, though. I mean, we do see a lot of variation in the lap times, and we do get a lot of drivers being split up into their own little fights, I mean, the undercut could be available. We have plenty of clear air as we're going straight into laps. 5 red lights.
Oh my
And
God,
away
so
we
John-
go. It's James. Drive-through penalty to start things off, but does fly into P1. Joe overtaking Cameron down the inside. The Aston Martin is through and clear at the moment of Cameron Searle in P3. Last Gen Newt up past Dasher. The McLaren is really trying to make a move, but Dasher's going to be fighting back, heading through these corners. Joe maintaining a slight lead over Cameron, going through the first few corners, but it's James. Despite that drive-through, he's going to have to take the next few laps. It's going to be Joe leading the way.
Actually, it's James following in his inner chaotic with that jump start and effectively got himself into a phenomenal first place, though. He has a chance to absolutely win the race if it was not for the penalties. But yeah, it's just really, really unfortunate for him. And as well, that drive-through is one of the longest pit straights I think we have on the calendar as well. So he is going to be dropping all the more back. But he has to concede it at least within 3 laps, I believe. Otherwise, he gets a time penalty, I believe, in exchange for that. So he's got about 3 laps. So that means that it's potential to block Joe and Cameron for their duel for the lead from him being there as well. So that's going to be an interesting part to play. But Joe absolutely needed that start to keep his championship hopes alive and beats Cameron off the line to turn 1. It's exactly what he needs, and he's going to be all the more very happy for it.
Yeah, it's crazy at this point in time, but this is actually just what Cameron wants. Cameron needs, as James will instantly peel off into the pit lane, serve that penalty, and Joe will be released into P1, setting the fastest lap, starting on the hard tyres. Just take a look at what we have in terms of the rest of the strategy. Look at that, we got a few mediums out there, but it's a mainly hard tyre start for all these drivers. At the moment, it's James, of course, heading back to the starting grid, and already we are seeing a little bit of a gap forming. Zizi about 1.2 seconds back, Geek 1.6. It's a tricky track and tricky stuff to get used to. As Joe will cover off Cameron. No dive around the outside for Cameron, as that will be cut off. As we continue around this circuit, Cameron getting a purple sector as he continues to chase down Joe and trying to find his way past. As we go down towards turn 10, the start of what used to be the Singapore Sling, and what is now just a slightly sweeping corner down towards the bridge as they head through into this hairpin, down into third gear. It's surprising. A lot of hairpins on this circuit, you would expect, all right, go drop down into second gear. Nope, then gear 3, you're all right. It's true. It's crazy how useless gear 1 and 2 is, except around Monaco, for all these drivers who are far more experienced than I am. But Cameron still lining up a move, about 4/10 gap. He's going to be happy when DRS gets turned on at the end of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. That DRS is going to be very hard for Joe to be able to defend, but also with that, I think Last Gen Newt might be also looking to try and get a position as well. He's comfortably alongside Cameron and Joe, but be it in the mediums, it's still going to be a big advantage to him. There's the DRS now coming out through those first 3 turns now, exiting out, and then it's just a short straight coming afterwards, and then it slowly comes to sweeping of turn 5, off which that has the first DRS, as Tom Foley's the first ones to pit for pit wing damage. Front wing damage, my bad. But here we go. Here's the DRS now with Cameron. So he's a bit too far back now. I think Joe used the ERS through that first sector now in order to defend and counter it. And it's done pretty well for him. He still holds on to P1.
That fight is going to be tracked quite a lot throughout this. And fair play to Last Gen Newt, just hanging onto the gearbox of Cameron at the moment to remain in that podium position. Dasher just behind. Alpha with them. Geek joining back. I'm sure that was just a slight disconnect going over here, but he's down into P8. He will want to just hunt down a bit more lap time to catch up with a few more drivers who are still going to be on board, with Cameron here looking to chase down, going into this second DRS section of the track. But Cameron will be unable to make another overtake. I do worry a little bit about the ERS situation for Joe. How long can he keep up this fight? How long is he going to stay alive up front? I mean, just taking a look at his ERS, he's actually quite high still. He's in the right position. He's just managed to stay ahead on pure pace, surprisingly, over Cameron.
I'm going to look at move here now.
We do enter the DRS train. Cameron looking to move down the inside, but Joe will cover him off. Good defense from the Aston Martin driver. The green remains in front of the blue.
best thing about having no run-ups is that it's so much easier to defend, albeit with the DRS zones it's a bit harder to counteract that. But if you manage your ERS well and you use the track to your advantage, which Joe is doing, he's trying to hold into the P1 as much as he can. But now they're going to be going side by side now, heading through turn number 6. Now he does it before the corner even happens. That's the benefit of the DRS. Cameron himself gets up into the lead now.
Well, I have to see how Joe reacts. You've had the question. Now you have to come up with a response, Joe. You have to stay on the back of the driver in front. It's already dropping to about 5/10. You need to keep that under a second to keep your hopes alive, whereas Last Gen Newt might be licking his lips just a little bit more, and considering the fight that's just happened, he's still within a shot of getting up to P2. As the DRS flaps open, the rear wings wide, allowing the air to pass through, but won't be enough for Joe as it stands. We go through turns 14, down to 15, another DRS zone. I believe, no, I think on the game it might not be available to these drivers as they head down to 16 and 17, moving on to 18. But this start-finish straight definitely is a DRS zone, as Joe has an opportunity to just close the gap a little bit more, perhaps make a dive down the inside. We'll have to see how he reacts here. No, just staying behind, staying relaxed. We have to still have this full race to go. There's no need to make odd dive bombs that could just take you out of contention immediately. Like you say, no runoff. The margin for error extremely low. You just have to stay within shot to keep your hopes alive on this race, as finally we enter the DRS zone where Cameron made his move. Joe will not respond the next lap and just remains behind and stays within touch.
He just needs to stay within that DRS zone from Cameron in order to keep the pressure onto him. The thing is, though, Last Gen Newt is still slowly catching up, so both of them are actually going to be under pressure constantly from Last Gen Newt. So if Joe and Cameron do continue to exchange positions, that's going to allow for Last Gen Newt, to still keep applying the pressure. And that's all he really needs, because he knows he's on weaker tires. He knows he's going to be, a bit worse strategy-wise, but he just needs to keep the pressure on, and that's all he really needs in the long form. But for Joe, though, Joe just needs the DRS as much as he possibly can and just, keep applying the pressure to Cameron. That's, I think, what his main goal is going to be. And he can't make any dive bombs because, again, the Singapore track is notorious for being very, very wary on the tires. If he makes a dive bomb which doesn't work, that is going to be extremely, extremely bad, especially for the hards, because you're trying to make it use there for the long run. If you mistreat it at all, ever so slightly, then that's not going to be very good for the long run. And you have to, as you mentioned before, undercuts are okay, but if you have to pit far, far earlier than what you imagine, it's effectively going to ruin your race, especially in Singapore.
Already looking at the intervals between drivers, we almost have only 2 fights going on. We got this Cameron, Joe, Last Gen Newt, 3-way fight for the win. Just behind P5, P6. That is the other battle going on. Mad Dog looking to try and line up a move against Alpha. At the moment, Mad Dog sitting in P4 in the championship. I think if he wants to catch up to Josh and Joe at the moment, challenge for the podium that he got last season, is going to have to make a move past the Alpha during the early parts of this race. Get yourself comfortable and in for the long haul, higher up into the lead, as Joe is starting to be left behind by Cameron. The flow state has been unlocked by the driver, and it's already reaching a second. We're going to enter the next DRS detection zone. Now, I'm going to be very interested. Has it been dropped early? Does Joe still have just about the DRS? No, he's just been dropped behind. Cameron has the lead, doesn't have the DRS drain behind. What can he do to just... he is going to widen the gap, let's be honest. It's just a question of if the walls are going to beckon. Are we going to have another Cameron Searle moment going into turn 1 or any other part of this track? Maybe a lockup going down to turn 13 just after the bridge possibly. But at the moment, from what we've seen this season, those early season jitters are gone. They've been left behind, and he's just going to be consistent. So now after Joe's been left behind, 1.3 second gap between the two, the fight is now just between Joe, Last Gen Newt, Alpha picking up a 3-second time penalty there for multiple warnings, and 5 and 6, Alpha versus Mad Dog. And clearly, Mad Dog is pushing Alpha to his limits if he's getting a 3-second time penalty at the moment.
How can you track extend in Singapore? I thought that was impossible.
It's surprisingly easy, I found, in terms of my my lap times. There are quite a few parts of this track where the white lines are very strict. Very, very strict. I can't remember exactly the corners, but you do have... you have to maintain quite a lot of discipline going through a lot of these corners to avoid any form of penalty or any sort of invalidation. At least it was in time trial, would be invalidation. So we head down in towards this DRS zone. Mad Dog is going to be hunting for that move. The gap is about 5/10. Will that be made up with the DRS wing open? He's getting into the slipstream, hoping to go down the outside. Will be blocked out by Alpha. This is good defense using the Singapore circuit to his advantage. Alpha remaining in P5 on track as it stands. We have to remember that 3-second time penalty is definitely going to come back to haunt him when we get to the last bit of this race. The fight continues between Last Gen Newt and Joe up front, but eyes on them at the moment. Going into turn 1, will be on this battle at the moment. Mad Dog might be just a little bit too far behind the DRS straights. There's quite a few around Singapore, but at the moment, they're not long enough to give an opportunity. But it does seem like this is going to be the popular area for overtakes around this circuit. Can the move be made? Oh. Look at this, just up ahead. It is Last Gen Newt making a move down the inside. They bump tires. Oh. Joe is sent wide, but he's still holding firm on the inside, remaining in position, sending Last Gen Newt almost into the wall. They're still saying side by side, tire to tire, a little bit of contact between the two. Last Gen Newt sent into a little bit of a tank slapper, but still remains on track. The 2/10 gap remains after a quick fight between Joe and Last Gen Newt. Joe comes out on top, and Mad Dog, in the meantime, has also managed to get the move past Alpha and up into P5.
That was so close. He was very lucky neither of them have got any damage. Mad Dog a little bit slippery coming out of turn 5. Alpha a little bit of that momentum to catch up. But those two were really close between Newt and Joe for no damage for the front wings actually for either of them with that tire collision. Super close, very on the edge, but both of them gave each other a bit of the racing room, shall we say. And well, funnily enough, a little bit of touring car action, shall we say, in Formula 1 cars. But interesting for them. Last Gen Newt will definitely have another go. He's still on the fresher tires. I think Joe is probably going to try and conserve his as much as he possibly can. So expect a round 2 here very soon.
I think the mediums might be starting to suffer. We know it's a high degradation track, and Last Gen Newt has just had to make a dive down the inside and stay there and stick around. So it's going to have to be on one of these straights that he makes up the time rather than in the corners. He's probably going to have to go in for new tires a little bit sooner than Joe, and even sooner than I think he might have expected after the treatment that the tires have had to go through after a fight for position that unfortunately he's ended up missing out on. I mean, it was completely elbows out performance from the two of them, as expected, as now we do have eyes on another battle starting to form. It's going to be about these duels today, and slowly but surely, each of them sort of coming together as tomfoolery, I think, making a pass on Finn on circuit as well. But Geek is hoping to line up a move here, only 3/10 up behind, going across the bridge now and in towards the hairpin. Plenty of time to be gained if you manage to do it right, and Geek is taking a slightly more inside line and could be following up with a move with the DRS, going around the outside. Can he hold position here, down into the corner? Yes, he can. Gets the overtake, cleanly makes the move, and Geek is up into P7, passes easy.
Good there from Geek. Needs that to keep his position upgained, having not done very well in qualifying. He's hoping to make a similar Austrian-esque charge as now with Last Gen Newt with the DRS, maybe looking for a move, not quite close enough though to Joe, heading through turn 1 through 2 and then over down with the slow braking through 3. Look how much more that he goes very closer, coming out from the short straights now. It's now heading through turn 5 now, very sweeping, just needs to keep behind as much as he possibly can, and now he's got the DRS and now to his advantage now. I think Joe has got not much to defend now on the racing track and in the racing room now. Although he is a little bit far, he might be able to, yeah, he's pulled it off, come through that first sector now, and very well placed there from Joe. I think it was the ERS management that put a lot to his advantage there. Keeps Last Gen Newt behind, still 2 and 3 for them both.
And you just sort of see things start to progress and slowly the gaps start to close. Alpha is actually still within a little bit of a shot of Mad Dog as Chaotic moving past Finn in terms of the back of the grid. But Alpha still has about a second to make up, and in the meantime, Geek is actually making up the time between himself and Alpha as well. Briefly down to about 9/10 of a second, is back up to sort of sitting around about 1.1 seconds at the moment. ZZ gaining a little bit of time there as well. Will slowly but surely be using the DRS zones to catch up with Geek in front as the two drivers heading towards up front. It's Joe and Last Gen New. Last Gen New, I think he's starting to lose a little bit of the traction that the medium tires have. So coming out of every single one of these corners, he's slow but surely getting a little bit slower every single time versus the hard tires of Joe that are just going to be weathering the storm a little bit more.
I thought he collided with the wall a bit there. He collided with the wall, just a little bit squirmy coming out from that first sector though. The only advantage he's really gotten compared to Joe, if it's not the tires, it is the DRS, and just climb up as much as he possibly can for the back straight to just continue to apply the pressure on. Having been lap 11 on 34, I think we can really expect for him to pit very soon and make use of the hards, presumably, as much as he possibly can. I'm pretty sure one stop here is the logistical decision here. Tom Foley himself also has got a 3-second time penalty for track extending, but Newt is still keeping the pressure on. He's still making as much he possibly can with the worn health of the medium tires through the second and eventually the third sector, but it's the DRS that is effectively that keeps him on in this fight with Joe.
At the moment, looking down the order, Geek is actually within 5/10 as well of his next opponent as they head across down the hairpin and down towards turn 14. He won't be looking to make a move now. It's a little bit too far back, so he did make his previous move here, managed to take it around the outside of the ZZ going through these corners. He's looking like he's going to make the move on Alpha very, very soon here, possibly onto the next part of the home straight. Next time you go down that, as they are approaching that section now, heading down 16 and 17 towards 18. Geek having a little moment heading down towards the wall, does open up that last corner a little bit more through the double apex and will be chasing him down, moves out towards the inside. Can he make the move? No, just like most times, the DRS straight on the home stretch is just a little bit too short for a lot of these drivers to make the move confidently, and it turns into just staying close. So when you get towards this section, the second DRS section of the track, you start to look at the move a little bit more seriously as we are heading down towards turn number 7. But no, Geek just relaxing, plenty of time, doesn't make the move yet.
No, not quite. Still with the advantage though for Geek. I think it's very soon that we can see him making the move in Alpha fairly soon, but Geek's done very well, though. Very well. Within nearly about half a race, he's climbed up half the field, more or less. And if he keeps on the momentum, probably might get himself up into the maybe fifth, might potentially be on the cards if he pits correctly on the right time. It is on the hards, though, so the people in the mediums are going to be pitting very soon. So he's going to eventually elevate his position up a bit further. But again, just pitting at the right time and just... We mentioned before about the debate between overcuts and undercuts. I think really it just depends. I think honestly now at this point, having seen how the race has progressed, it's just going to depend on the driver and how well they can overtake / defend here in Marina Bay.
Well, his teammate is up by 6 seconds over Joe. He's trying to get ahead of one more driver here on track. Moves out towards the inside, hoping to make a move on Alpha now. No. Still waits, gathers up the speed. It's another fight between two drivers on mediums and hards, and it looks like we are very, very close to the mediums just completely dropping off against the hards. We move into the second DRS zone now, starting to build up down in the last 10 meters and opens up the DRS. Will this be the time? Will Alpha be dropping down in other places? They're going side by side, down in towards turn 7. Very, very, very close. Very close again. Alpha sent off track, but is still remaining close. Still on the outside. A little bit of contact on the tyres. And Alpha goes through. He stays there. That is very much elbows out and very physical racing between the two drivers. Geek will probably be very upset about what's happened there with the tyre being clipped. He has to go wide, and he has to wait a little bit longer to make sure P6 is his.
Easily unsells the car, not very good there. Not sure if Alpha gave Geek the entire racing room there, but it's pretty on the edge defending though. But with the DRS now in Geek's favor, now he's going to try and hope to look for a move again, heading for the third sector. But Alpha defends brilliantly, coming out through the third sector now, and it's just a series of corners now. And all Geek has to do now is just wait as he possibly can, try to use the slipstream now, hoping to look for the outside. No, not quite. Still, just not giving Alpha any breathing room whatsoever. But the final two corners, he's going to have the DRS now to his advantage now. Head for one apex, head for the other. Now he's got the DRS now. Can he make anything out here? Maybe for the inside down to turn 1. He is looking for it, but not quite. And still the first sector, but he's definitely going to have a look for it again in the second DRS straight.
He's going to be driving angry now, going through next corner. We've seen it. He was just squirming left to right, trying to find the opening in the last few corners. Now as we enter the DRS zone again, these two are fighting so hard going into this portion of the track last lap. What can they do this time? What sort of entertainment can they provide? Is Geek heading down the inside? Can he get a cleaner run? As both, they bang tyres once more. But this time, Geek is ahead. And still, Alpha will try and get back, but doesn't have the room. Geek takes the corner, he gets to the inside, and will now take P6. Alpha on the medium tyres. I think he needs to be looking for a pit stop now. It's quite clear that hards are going to be much better. Last gen Newt is starting to drop back from the hard tyre running Joe. I think this is the time for the medium runners to start looking at the hard tyres and starting to switch away from the tyres they started this race on, as we are slowly but surely losing touch with the hard tyre runners that are ahead of them, as two medium drivers are going to be looking for a fight now. Alpha and ZZ. ZZ is in the DRS zone in that 1 second time. We'll be getting DRS, so that could be the next fight that we see being lined up around the Marina Bay circuit.
Yeah, yep, definitely for sure. But can just see there with the lap traffic now, it's going to be. Let's see how well Joe and Winston would be. Alpha's in. Yeah, so there we go. First of the pit stops now on the medium, so he's definitely going to be swapping out for the hards now. That is midway through, so that is fairly late for the medium runners to come to pit so early. But with the hards on, he'll be able to try and push effectively as much as he possibly can. Yeezy with the 3-second time penalty. That's the third driver to receive it now. Alpha's going to come out, I believe, in P9. He does so. It's just behind its James to 17 seconds between himself, and he's just going to be effectively trying to look to fight with Geek now at the moment, as I was thought for a minute we had a safety car for a minute, but had a scare.
No, it's just a blue flag coming out. As we do have ZZ off track.
Oh my!
The only bit of runoff on the circuit he's managed to find and stay out of the wall with, as he'll be looking to try and find a little moment to move off. We do have two cars we'll be driving past right now, and off ZZ goes. What is it? Rejoin safely? I can't remember what Jimmy Broadbent says. That was my moment to say rejoin safely. No, I said it again.
Resafe? No. Rejoin Lee's.
You don't have it either.
Resafely rejoin Lee. I don't bloody know. I apologize, BUSR audience.
That was our moment. Resafe jointly, that's it. I think it's resafe.
Bloody hell!
Third try is the charm. There we go. That's perfectly encapsulates the entire from the both of us. Oh goodness! But
Yeezy's gone through the day for giving the commentators aneurysms.
Well, last gen Newt sticking with his medium tyres. He's going to be seeing how long he can make those last and still be within touch with Joe. Of course, staying in the DRS train it does make it a little bit easier for you. You don't have to push the tires so much. You can, in terms of getting pace around the track. Azizi is retired from the session. The first retirement around this circuit is still only a yellow flags out.
He's in the pits.
As he must have retired pit lane.
Yeah, he's in the pits now. So I forgot what the term was again. Damn it. But yeah, with that coming into the pits now, it's just the first. It is the first one that has their retirements, but it's not on track though, as getting a bit of yellow flags, but it should be fine at the moment. Still lap 60 now, 31, midway through this race. Still been no real scares at the moment, apart from tomfoolery that we've seen in the pits with the front wing damage. Also, no one has really had much debris flying anywhere, or front wings, as much as so close as we've seen here before. It's still all safe to play for in games, but yeah, just looking over for last gen Newt though, it's still lap 17 out 31. Those probably have to think when or soon how he will make that overtake onto Joe. He's still just applying as much pressure as possibly can onto the mediums. He is effectively beating the life out of them.
I think we have our first hard tyre runners moving on to the mediums. Dasher and Mad Dog diving into the pit lanes, the Ferrari and the Alfa Romeo putting on fresh mediums. They'll be on 0 laps. It's James passing the Alfa Romeo to move up on track, as well as Alfa and the McLaren. Mad Dog dropping down a few places, and we'll have to deal with a little bit of traffic as Last Gen Newt is starting to lose touch, I think, with Joe. That's going to be purely based on the tyres, I would say, considering everyone else on the mediums has pit already or have already had an incident on track. I think Finn started on the mediums, needs to get a front wing replaced, and I think in the meantime just put on a few mediums to get the pit stop done and dusted. But I would say he's gonna have to make another one. If the medium tires are lasting 15 laps, Finn's tires are going to be dying by the end of the race. As Last Gen Newt, there we go, the driver who's been running in third place for almost this entire race, I'd say pretty much by the first corner he was there, is going to be making a pit stop and making the move. As still the top two drivers, as well as Geek and It's James, still on their original tyres that they started this race on. The hards seem to be going for a little while now, as I think I did see, yep, there we go, Geek into the pit lane. So another driver who started on the hards, swapping onto the mediums. And we still have those top two drivers yet to make their pit stop and their strategy called. Now, we're at the point where surely Joe has to make a move. Get aggressive, go for the undercut on Cameron. You have 8 seconds, and Last Gen Newt's already made the move. I think this is time for Joe to make his pit stop in this race, but we'll see if he thinks differently, as he is starting to... He must be considering it at the moment, going through this complex of corners, down across the bridge, onto the hairpin. Will he make the move? In terms of Cameron, he'll probably do the opposite, as we see a race going on track. Mad Dog getting past Alfa once again. Managed to get through cleanly. Alfa will still try to stick with him. Diving down the inside. Contact between the two again. Alfa really getting his elbows out in this race. But this time, it does not let him keep the position, as Mad Dog does get through and remains past the McLaren.
There we go. Joe's in the pits now, so he's definitely gonna try and do the undercut now onto Cameron. But it's also have to see with Last Gen Newt, he's got about a lap now to see if he can even make up for the deficit onto his hards now. But Joe himself is going to be onto the mediums as well, which, given the late stage of this race, is going to be the most optimal tire, because he's got about 11 laps or so to 12 laps to effectively make use of the medium tires. And Last Gen Newt has got the same amount of time, but with the hards though, as we now see with him, Joe's slowly going to come out the pits. I think he might still just be about ahead, although Last Gen Newt has got better temperature control. Going to be going side by side, sweeps around for the outside. It's going to be going wheel to wheel now, heading for the first sector now. But Last Gen Newt has definitely got the bigger advantage with the tire temperatures, and he's made the overtake. He gets himself up into the second for the first time now, and hopefully he's going to try and make it cement.
Only question now is going to be about the tire age. Geek and Joe already making a move. I was about to talk about another fight going on, but a wild dive bomb down the inside gives Joe the position back. The tyres might not be switched on yet, but Joe definitely is. He saw a gap, went for it, and is through back into P2. And, well, it's 34 seconds in between Joe and Cameron. It was about 26 between Joe and Last Gen Newt, and we saw a fight in between the two of them. So that gap is going to have to come down by about 7 seconds now for Joe, as Cameron is moving into the pit lane now. Let's focus on Joe here, as that he's going to have to make up that time going through these last few sectors of this track, the last few turns. Cameron's already had his pit stop and is going to be leaving the pit lane extremely soon, but I think Joe is going to be too far back. The time, I think, between the two of them, the delta is going to be cut down by about 2 seconds, but it is not going to be enough for Joe, as Cameron is already out of the pit lane. Joe has just started the pit lane straight.
Yeah, but you could just see there with Finn, he's now taken the provisional lead away from Cameron Stoll now, so going to be interested to see if he can make that overtake now to reclaim P1. It's going to be looking now here, and look at that overtake. That is absolutely clean as you want. He gets himself up into... Joe's got a 3-second time penalty from the defense on Last Gen Newt. That's big.
That's massive, especially for Last Gen Newt. Current P6 in the championship. Second does deliver quite a handy points haul. But any of these drivers, second place guarantees you 40 points in the championship. The Last Gen Newt gets second. That's 145. That's about 14 points between himself and Josh in P3 in the championship. That'll be big moves up for him. But even with that 3-second time penalty, he is getting dropped behind on those hard tires. Joe's mediums are coming alive here at the end of this race. We're going to have to see how everything goes by the end of, I'll probably say, lap 28, thereabouts, where we might see the mediums start to falter a little bit, as Geek is right on the gearbox of Alpha. We've seen a fight already between these two, but the pit stops have brought them back together once more. Geek sizing up a move, heading down the inside, and the turn in comes early for Alpha, and he's knocked away into the wall. Bit of contact between the two of them. I'll be honest, that's a bit of a racing incident. I think Alpha trying to take a turn when Geek was already there. That was just going to happen between the two drivers.
Yeah, absolutely. Just really, really bloody crucial, though. Closing stages of the race, though. 10 laps to go. Still a lot of the positions and the fights all to play for, though. But I think Joe's actually pulling away from Last Gen Newt, looking on the thing. He's now with the Delta 3 seconds clear of Last Gen Newt with that hards, the mediums that Joe has got on. It's just so much better to squeeze out in the closing stages. And unless if Joe gets another time penalty somehow, I think he's pretty much got P2 cemented.
He did cut down the lead using that undercut, but unfortunately, a safety car out.
Oh my word!
What?
Someone's crashed. So who is it?
It looked like an Alfa Romeo on track.
Chaotic? No, it's not chaotic. So
the front wing is on.
It is chaotic. So wow, that's, oh my word, 10 laps to go. It's no front wing, so it's debris caution. So he's going to need to get into the pits to repair that front wing. But this is big. This leaves the door wide open for strategy now. Question is, what kind of people that we can see pitting now? Because I would imagine that the people on the hards will probably pit onto the much faster mediums for the closing stages of the race. But it's James with the hards on 20 laps. My word, that is frankly impressive. He's definitely going to be going onto the pits. But maybe there might be other people going in for the gamble. Joe's going in for the gamble now. He's going into the pits.
What is going to be the move for Joe here? Is it just going to be fresher mediums? Last Gen Newt's definitely taking the opportunity. I think we saw Joe just rocket off away from him in the last few laps. So he's definitely going to pick for fresh tires. It looks like everyone's decided that the opportunity to get new tires towards the end of this race is perfect. I mean, we do have the safety car. That takes away a few laps, and that's low stress, almost degradation on the tires over those few laps. The only person who has not made the move is Cameron. He'll have two lap tires older. Geek has also decided to stay out 4 laps older tires than the next few drivers. Joe, Last Gen Newt, Dasher, Mad Dog, Alpha as well, all deciding that it's worth it. It's James finally getting rid of those 21 lap-old tyres and decides to put on the red walls to see what chaos he can cause with the soft tyres. Finn also joining him on those tyres, but I think the medium's still the move to go. I think it's still a little bit too early for the soft tyres, knowing how quickly the Singapore is going to eat them up just in the last few laps. I think medium is still the move to go if you want to compete in this race. But if you want to take the fastest lap away from the top few, Joe on a 1:37, leading the way by about a second over Dasher, who had it before. It could be an opportunity on those soft tyres to take another 2 points away for the championship, which, let's be honest, at this point in the season is massive. It's James currently in 12th, competing with Alpha and Aria in P10 and 11, joint on 68 points. James on 54. He'll get to gain points on Quicks just behind on 43 points, as well as Jack on 40 and P14. So this is in previous races, it's all been about the championship. Now that's sewn up. We get to see all the little intricate fights the rest of the season can provide. All the interest, all the intrigue of what's happening lower down the order now that we've sort of got this championship sorted and done and dusted. I mean, Cameron is, like I said at the start of the stream, it's a bit of a coronation of a last 2 races. Almost going to be crowned as soon as he goes over the line here in Singapore, as long as he finishes. And but the problem for Joe now is, if Geek remains in P2 and Cameron doesn't finish, that's done and dusted. That's title fight 100% done. Too many points difference. It's Alpha speeding in the pit lane. Another 5 seconds.
Another 5 seconds. So that says up to 7 seconds now for, 8 seconds now for Alpha, coming in 7th. And with that safety car restart, it's going to be some dropping about further back. But the thing with Cameron and with Gig having to stay out is that, with the cars behind on much fresher tires and rubber, it's going to be a lot harder to defend it. So is Cameron thinking of something that we don't, or is he hoping to turn the odds against his favor? Because I think he knows he just needs to finish the points in order to effectively clinch the championship here. But Joe knows he needs more than just a race win under his belt for this. He needs to effectively hope for Cameron to drop even further back. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see. I think the safety car's slowly going to come into this lap, I believe.
Well, the top 15 are always guaranteed points, and with 12 today, everyone who managed to get to the end of the race, get to the checkered flag, was going to be guaranteed points. So it was really a DNF or nothing in terms of Joe's title hopes. And with Cameron is driving, he's going to be absolutely fine today. I think he stayed out because he might have asked Geek to stay out as well. Have a rear gunner also driving a Red Bull to help you out. Slow down the pack a little bit. But the individual driver standings seems to be more important throughout the season. And I mean, with the amount of time left we also have in this race, it is not that long for these older tyres to last as well under the safety car conditions and then into race conditions. So I think there is a certain amount that you can think, all right, they might have newer tyres and fresher tyres going around the circuit, but I think that these tyres are just going to have enough. I mean, it's only 2 laps, the difference between Joe and Cameron in terms of their tyre age, and Geek's only 2 laps older than Cameron at the moment. So with the amount of laps that we have to go being about 7 now, as we're just under that now, as we have these drivers partway through the lap, I would say it's not enough time for there to be a difference, considering a lot of the medium runners were managing to pit at lap 14, lap 15. So that being said, I think only Geek's tyres are really going to be in danger towards the end of this race. Everyone else, well, might be in the peril of It's James making a dash on the soft tyres as well. I mean, with the safety car coming in, I would say possibly this lap. We still have quite a few drivers to collect, but
No, they should maybe climb back up, maybe within this. The safety car crew, please slow down. But if it does come in, that's 25 laps. So that's going to be about 6 laps remaining, and then 5 of them are going to be having with the DRS open. So effectively, Cameron and Geek between the Red Bulls need a lap to try and pull away from Joe, Newton, Dasher, and then if it works, then they're just effectively battling themselves. Safety car is in this lap.
Here we go. It is going to be green flag running at the end of this lap. And Cameron has already started to slow up and play the mind games that we've seen him do so many times before during this season. He's led safety car restarts. He pretty much led all of the restarts that we had around Canada at the start of this season. A few more during the rest of the races. But he'll lead what could be the only one that we have around the Singapore circuit. I think maybe with a more full grid, we'd have seen plenty more safety cars, but it's just been the one today. A few yellow flags have come out, but Debris had brought out this safety car. What is going to be go time as we head towards the last corner of the track, down towards this double apex, and Cameron's already started to make the move, make the mad dash down towards turn 1. Geek will join him, getting into the slipstream, and won't be making a move. He'll just be letting his teammate get into turn 1 as 2 drivers behind, getting side by side, three wide, going to this turn 1, with Mercedes almost sent off track, as both it's James and Tom Fool already fighting for position. It looks like it's James has managed to get through. Dasher getting 5 seconds for ignoring a yellow flag. Must possibly an overtake before the timing line. We'll have to go back. Leighton Joe going straight to the back.
I think that's his front wing damaged. I believe. Unless if it wasn't, then he's incredibly lucky. But my word, he missed the braking zone there. Didn't expect Geek to brake it as much as he possibly can, though. Still using the slipstream, though, going a bit side by side, heading for the Singapore sling. Still nothing there. I can't see any damage, though, Alistair.
I can't see damage either, but I mean, we've seen it in the past. There possibly is damage that just doesn't show up for us in terms of in-game changes to the mesh, as Joe will hopefully be lining a move, just slipstreaming as he tries to move down the inside. That was a few moves on the braking. Geek, a little bit dicey there between these two drivers. Geek is definitely being a rear gunner for Cameron at the moment as Joe continues to pursue, trying to make a move down towards turn 16. We'll move down turn 17, and they're just on the gearbox. This is right on the edge of racing at the moment. Right now, they could be having a absolute fight as they go into the pit lane after this race, as Geek's going to be overtaken by Joe down the home stretch, and Joe gets through into P2, but that is going to be quite a difference made by having a rear gunner in Geek. Cameron will be thanking his teammate later. A 3-second gap already built up between P1 and P2, thanks to a little bit of a fight between Joe and Geek.
Yeah, absolutely. 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix moments right there, as we see now with Last Gender trying to get into the inside of Dasher just a little bit, pushing him a little bit off the circuit now, still trying to give him a bit of the racing room though. So going a bit too deep, heading into that corner now, and he has to concede a position over to Dasher. Still not over yet for Last Gen Newt though. If he just keeps behind along the pack, he's guaranteed a podium place though. So he just needs to keep amidst this kind of run and just hope Mad Dog does not beat him now. But it's all dependent if that row just continues to be in that situation though for Last Gen Newt. He's almost guaranteed third place as it stands now.
In second sector. Safety car again.
Another car. Oh my word, another one. That is Finn. I think Finn is off, I believe. Or is that Tom Foolery? Tom Foolery's spin. Is that a Mercedes collision that we've seen through that?
Front gone. Front wing's gone for Tom.
Oh, that's another safety. Wow, that's huge. So that's going to be another pit stop, and I think we will have maybe 2 laps of racing left, and then that's 1 with the DRS. So it's going to be a sprint line to the finish. Joe has got no chance now to win the race, as well as Geek and Dasher. Last Gen Newt on the prime position to score the podium as long as he can fend off for Mad Dog. But as it stands, Cameron has won the championship.
Well, makes it certain, makes it 100%. He's not going to be denied this championship at all. The guy who was just behind him all the way. They traded places last season. First, second, it seemed like for Joe. Pretty much the entire season spent his time on the top step or on the second to top step of the podium. This time he was challenging again. It took him a little bit of time to get into the swing of this season, but he still looks like he's going to be the #1 contender for being P2 in this championship. And winning the not Cameron BUSR Spring 25 Championship once again. But I think he'd just want to take this race away from Cameron. It is going to be slim pickings for opportunities to get past Cameron at this point. But now the key thing is Geek's not in the way. Geek can no longer rear gun for Cameron now. This safety car restart is going to be under the control of Cameron. And I would have to say it has to be fairly soon that this safety car comes in. Give us a few laps of standard green flag racing towards the end, as we do have 4 laps to go. Not long now for all of these drivers. We just wait. It'll be Tom Foolery catching up and Finn at the back of this train. He's about a lap down, so Tom in P10. I think if it was the Mercedes crashing, I think he's going to be quite frustrated.
Everyone's in the pits. I think everyone's going into the pits, maybe, I believe. If maybe that might be the case, but
I don't see it.
I could see Cameron and Keith maybe going into the pits, maybe.
Someone might go into the pits for fastest lap attempts? No. I think the amount of time we have left, it is all about track position and maintaining where you are in this status quo that we have. As surely now, it has to be safety car in this lap, and we'll have lap 29, 30, and 31 to go racing on and decide the winner of the Singapore Grand Prix. It's almost the only thing that we have to decide at this point in this season is slowly but surely the winners of these last few races, and also the competition behind. Mad Dog will be smiling a little bit, along with Last Gen Newt, seeing these penalties up in front. But it has to be said, I think with the time left, Joe getting a 3-second lap over, 3-second gap over Cameron. Yeah, I don't think that's happening with how consistent Cameron has been today, how well he's been able to get a lead and keep it. As we do have Tom Foolery, the last one to join the back of this line, the safety car queue. And we should be going racing this lap coming up next.
A lot of positions here to play for. Nothing has been very certain at all throughout this entire Singapore Grand Prix, apart from one, which was Cameron So has been effectively leading straight from lap 1. Well, not from lap 1, but ever since he's taken the lead away from Joe, he's effectively held on to lead fairly comfortably away from everyone else. The question is, for one last time, presumably, can he be able to do it again? The safety car is in this lap. He's going to bunch the field as much as he possibly can now, because he knows he's going to try and have that good getaway now through that final 2 corners. He's probably going to eyeball for that the same way position again. The only man that could really take him away from it, who is similar on pace, is Joe behind, but he's got 3-second time penalty. So the only way Joe can do it is if he wins on track. But still, 3 laps of racing, 2 laps of racing, 3 laps of racing, and then 2 with the DRS now. Can Cameron fend it off? A lot of questions here through the Singapore Grand Prix will slowly be answered now as we approach through the final sector.
Through turns 16 and 17, I think Cameron's gone early here, but Joe is right there with him. He's managed to telegraph the attack and run away 5/10 in between the 2 of them. So this first attack from Joe is not going to come yet. He's just going to stick behind, get the slipstream, stay within shot. As behind, Geek and Dasher will be fighting as well. It seems like everyone's managed to maintain position through this first sector here. No differences, no changes after this safety car restart. Joe chasing down Cameron up front, but there's still a 7/10 gap is not going to be made up without a little bit of help from DRS. Still a bit of slipstream does close the gap as we're heading through in towards Sector 2. Everyone has managed to maintain their position after the restart, and that is going to be big for Last Gen U as well, as everything remains very, very close together for him. He's going to be particularly happy with the result of that, as he'll just fly up the leaderboards as it stands. But I do have to say, I think he needs to get past Dasher to try and maintain this podium chance, because Dasher could be someone who slows down a little bit just to maintain a bit of control in this race. But he is trying to make a move past Geek now, going around the outside. No, just decides he doesn't have enough room and waits for a moment. Forces Geek wide, though, around that corner. Will get into the slipstream once again. We look to make the move. Goes down in towards the outside, in towards the next part of this track. It remains there. Dasher is side by side still, going into the last few corners, and Dasher does make the move stick onto the home stretch. Geek will get into the slipstream now. There's the question. The response is just a wait from Geek. The battle has given Joe an opportunity to get away now. Cameron does get a 1.3 second lead, but Joe is starting to get a gap between himself and Last Gen Newt now, which is the important battle in terms of keeping position in this fight. And he will be getting quite a good point. So in terms of this championship, Last Gen Newt having to stay very close to Geek up front, as Mad Dog will continue to challenge for position on track. We are on lap 30. As we go through these last few corners, Joe is still the closest person on track to Cameron. But today, he's just ran. He's just ran again. He's ran from the safety car twice, and he's just made it work. Every single obstacle. Once again, Cameron has driven perfectly today.
His first anti-clockwise track win in the calendar is all going to be his for just a lap and a half remaining. For Last Gen Newton from Mad Dog, expect the positions to maybe change there, because they're going to be fighting for who's going to get the last step of the podium, because Joe has effectively pulled away from Last Gen Newt. So that's going to be himself be guaranteeing himself a podium position, and Dasher and Geek will be fighting on track to see who will round off from that podium as well. DRS is now enabled. Now come through the final lap. Now we can see all the anticipation here, waiting here to this very moment now, looking for Last Gen Newt now. No DRS quite yet. It's going to be available for the next section, but he just needs to keep behind Geek as much as he possibly can, but also fend off a Mad Dog. Joe's got another three. That's not, it's another one, and he's going to lose it. He's lost the podium positions over to Last Gen Newt and Mad Dog.
Possibly to Geek as well. That is a 3-second time penalty. No, I think he just about gets away from Geek, but Dasher just needs to be within 1 second. I don't think he's going to make that up. But this is big for Last Gen Newt. He's going to be extremely happy in terms of the way things have played out towards the end of this race. But he's looking to still make one last move on someone on track. And Geek could be that victim now. Mad Dog just behind. I think it's so important. As long as he makes this move, he solidifies that spot on the podium with a big set of points going into the last race. Mad Dog, we're looking at who is going to be a little bit of a contender for his position in this championship, run away and try and stay within touch of Geek and Dasher here to take a podium as well. Mad Dog looks like he was going to be stepping onto the podium too with the way he's driving. It's James, we just off it the way he's performed. But as we enter the last corner, Cameron, perfect drive. He wins the Singapore Grand Prix. Job done. No one can take the championship away now, as Joe will be in second, beats Dasher, beats Geek, but Last Gen Newt and Mad Dog will be the last two players on the podium.
Look at that. Look how many positions have just effectively changed from the penalties that have been added. Joe has effectively had the P2 in the bag, but it was just the last few moments where he had another 3-second time penalty. It's been taken away from his cold hands, and yeah. Wow, that's absolutely incredible, though. Cameron Soul continues on his win streak, though. It's now up to 6 races, I believe, for a win for Cameron. So very, very impressive there from him. And he's hoping to head into Las Vegas in the final street circuit run and the final race of the calendar to maybe seal it off with another potential 2 wins to his books. But great racing there from him. Probably one of the most dominant drives we've seen from him in recent memory. And yeah, he's going to absolutely enjoy the champagne as it comes with the championship, I think.
I think it will. It's going to be parties in Singapore tonight for Cameron and the rest of the team. So, weirdly, in the 2023 season, of course, we're playing F1 23. this race was won by Ferrari. This was won by Carlos Sainz in that championship. But this time it is a Red Bull that finds their way to the top step of the podium. And as it was, and I think, who was the podium? It was, I think, Leclerc just behind. I think it was a Ferrari 1-2, and then it was Hamilton, I think, on P3 on that season. So an early resurgence of what the McLarens would turn into with last gen Newt in P2. And
Sainz, sorry, it was Sainz, Lando, and Hamilton, I believe.
Sainz, Lando. So yeah, we got a McLaren on the P2 on the podium. So McLaren does make a visit, but this time it's invaded by an Alfa Romeo. So it's like having Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, and Valtteri Bottas joining them on the podium. So I think Bottas actually describes Mad Dog quite well. A very good driver, just driving an Alfa Romeo. So. But what Singapore Grand Prix? Elbows out driving from a lot of their drivers on the grid. Quite a few instances of going wheel to wheel. But I think all in all, good spirit being driven on this circuit from everyone. But yeah, it's another race that was starting to look a little bit stagnant in terms of the position it was in. I remember Austria, everyone was starting to get their lap times in. And everyone's going around. Then all of a sudden we had a safety car that bunched up everyone again. We got a new, fresh set of fights and duels going on. Has to be said, 2 safety cars in a row gave us those fights again. And it gave a chance for quite a few drivers to make a leap up onto quite a few leaps up rungs on the ladder, as it were, in terms of the final positions. And that one last 3-second time penalty caught up with Joe. It just took away the podium from him.
It really did. But it's not all doom and gloom for the grid, because last gen Newt, with his P2, he's done one better. Has finished on the podium before in this championship. I believe he finished P3 over in Montreal, which I mentioned before about the similar characteristics between Montreal and Singapore. Does one better, though, here with a P2. So that's going to be his BUSR F1 best record here in... since Montreal, but as well, Mad Dog himself, unlikely for him, as we mentioned before, he's got the characteristics of Valtteri Bottas. Coming up from Spa-Francorchamps, he finished in 3rd. He's continuing on his podium streak as well. So that's 2 races in a row for Mad Dog. He gets himself into another podium as well, and also adds even more points. And with Wooly being absent, he gets himself even closer into an unlikely top 3 charge. We didn't really consider Mad Dog in the first half of the championship, saying if he was ever going to break into that P2. But with the great consistency and the great decision making he's had, those are very crucial points for him to get himself up into 3rd. And Joe having been in P4, it just makes that lead for him just a little bit more uncomfortable.
Well, I think there's going to be there are a few things floating around about this podium. I think Dasher getting his 5-second time penalty. We'll have to wait and see if this is going to be our final podium. But officially, as it stands on track. At the end of this race, it is going to be Cameron, Last Gen Newt, and Mad Dog making up our podium. So still a few questions to be answered whether this is going to be the last set, but it's still, if this is it, fantastic drive from Last Gen Newt. The start of this race, he just stuck with Joe this entire time, stuck like glue on his gearbox. That would have helped his medium tyres a bunch, let him go a little bit further into the race on a tyre that gave him that quick start that he needed to get up into P3 and stay there. And he just stuck with it. He stuck with that top 3 pack. And by the end of it, I think the second safety car kind of scuffed him up, kind of tripped him over. But it is what it is in terms of the race. And Last Gen Newt managed to get onto the podium. As we do have the drivers in the interview room, I'm just going to make sure I have the right top 3 here before we ask anyone in.
Mad Dog, Newt, and I think Cameron, I believe it was.
Well, I think we're going to have to... I see Dasher in there, and that's the person that I was interested in, but I think we will go with the podium in question to get things rolling. So we'll get Mad Dog in here. Well, BUSR's Valtteri Bottas, as I put it, there's someone in an Alfa Romeo who can drive a lot better than an Alfa Romeo today. P3 on track. Still possible questions about it, but still, Mad Dog, once again, the time I'm casting, you finally do well again. Good stuff, mate, on the podium.
Yeah, the one race you weren't here for, I got a podium, so I wondered if you got the reverse touch from last season. Yeah, as he said, I expect this one might not stick, thanks to, I believe Dasher will end up P2 if he gets his 5 seconds removed. But we'll pretend I'm P3 for now. Yeah, would you believe me if I said I went into this race not expecting anything because I had no race pace?
I think
carbon copy of last week.
I think considering quali, I think a lot of people were sort of very careful around this Singapore circuit. So I wouldn't be surprised to hear
qualifying. I will mention. Yeah. First lap was a banker lap, nothing special. Second lap, I forgot to turn ERS on until turn 3. And then half spun my way around the final corner. So that lost me about 3 attempts at least. And then my final lap, I put it in a wall. So, yeah, very, very much threw away 2 positions and quali completely of my own accord. Yeah, and then just a classic Mad Dog race of sticking behind someone.
I mean,
overtaking them when their tyres go.
I mean, last year New almost did the same thing. He just stuck behind Joe as well. You're sort of in the middle of a fight with him at the moment for making the most of Josh not being around and possibly challenging for P3 in the championship overall. Going into Las Vegas, how are you feeling about in terms of the overall championship fight itself? Are you hoping to maintain that P3 championship standing after P3 last season?
Yeah, I mean, honestly wasn't expecting it because I spent most of the season about 6th or 7th. But yeah, there's just so many more quicker people. Like Willie was back after not racing the end of last season. Ben Mills is rapid. Dasher's been a bit more full-time this season and he's pretty quick. So yeah, just a lot more quick people in the lobby this season. But yeah, for one reason or another, they've not been as consistent, dropped out, and yet again, the tortoise finishes 3rd. So yeah, in terms of a championship, it just depends on who turns up, who's there, and Las Vegas is, well, it's a lottery fitting, which is fitting given where it is. So yeah, I think the one thing to mention is that due to the way the sprint rounds work, generally you get less points in a sprint round overall. So it probably gives the advantage to the person who's in 3rd going into the Laureate, which might be me at this point. I honestly don't know. I think it's close between me and Wooly.
I think you are. I think you're going to be just behind Wooly. If he does drive.
Maths. Okay, if I'm 3rd, I'm ahead of him by 6 points. If I'm 4th, I'm ahead of him by 1. There you go. Yeah, that's pretty much nothing else from me. It's just another Mad Dog certified race.
You've got yourself onto the podium, though. You've mentioned before no race pace back in Spa, and you've mentioned similar that you were hoping for Singapore maybe to be struggling as well, but surprised yourself, though, with another podium in a similar situation by sort of keeping it clean and keeping away from danger. Las Vegas has sort of similar characteristics into what we've seen here from Singapore and Spa, being both fast and having that difficulty of the corners. So I'm curious, Mad Dog, given that we've seen from your performances which was fantastic, do you think you yourself would have a chance of making it 3 in a row for podiums?
I think anything could happen at Vegas. I've heard maybe there are more people coming back to do one-offs who are maybe quick as well. So watch space on that. So it's like maybe that gives me even less chance for podium if there's just more people quicker than me showing up. But yeah, Vegas is going to be the most attritional race this season, probably. And generally, I'm pretty good at keeping out of danger. So if I keep managing that again, who knows? It'll be close. It'll be fun to watch at the very least.
Well fought today, Mad Dog. Either P3 or P4. We'll see. We'll have to see what happens here. But congratulations, a very good race today when it comes to your championship hopes.
Indeed. Thanks, guys.
And now we'll move on to our next driver, P2, as it stands. Last Gen Newt joining us for a chat. Last Gen, it's a very impressive drive today. I mean, lap one, first few laps, you managed to stay behind in that sort of lead pack behind Joe and Cameron very well. What was the strategy today in terms of starting on mediums and going through this race?
I think I wanted to start on the mediums because I wanted to stick with Joe for as long as possible because DRS is extremely powerful around here. And I just wanted to build a gap to dash it behind, and I think the gap got to like 9 seconds. And then I started to drop out of DRS of Joe, so that's when I pitted for the hards. But then the safety cars came out and changed the strategy anyway. So yeah, it was a lot of chaos at the end. I didn't really know what was happening. I broke my front wing on the pit exit, which wasn't great. So I had a broken front wing for like the last 10 laps. So yeah, a lot of understeer and just trying to survive until the end, and then the penalties got me the podium, so I'm quite happy with it.
Having started off, you mentioned before on the race in the hards, you've kept yourself on the mediums, and you've prolonged it for as long as you possibly can behind Joe. Was it for your chase to P2? Would you say that the safety car helped you bring yourself back up into a better position, would you say, than before, which helped you promote yourself up to P2, would you say?
I think so. The hards felt absolutely horrible, so it was much better when I switched back to the mediums. Even with the damage, the car felt much better because the hards were overheating massively and just sliding around everywhere, and the pace was absolutely horrible. So I'm quite glad the safety cars came out. And then the second safety car meant that I didn't have to keep people behind for as long as I did, because with the front wing damage, I think I would have lost tons of positions if the second safety car didn't come out.
Well, good gains today made in terms of the championship fight. P3 still sort of on the cards for you. I think when we talked to you earlier in the season, you were happy for about being top 7, top 6 in terms of the championship, and now you are within a chance of getting P3 after the race today. Going to Las Vegas, where are the confidence levels with one more street circuit to deal with?
I think Las Vegas is going to be very difficult. It's a very low grip circuit, so those are the circuits that I tend to do badly at, like how I did it a lot worse at Spa because it's a lot less grip. I'm really good at high downforce circuits like Monaco and Singapore, so it's going to be really difficult, but Vegas always has lots of chaos, so I'm just hoping for something to happen.
This has actually been your best position so far in your BUSR F1 career, if I'm not mistaken, P2. It's been a promotion actually from what you've had P3 earlier in the race. Having from this uphill momentum that you and your McLaren car that has, how are you faring for the final 2 races, both being a sprint race and a feature race over in Las Vegas, which has a bit of the summer characteristics to where you've propelled yourself in before. So I'm curious, Last Gen, on your opinions on it.
I think for the sprint race, I just want to survive it. I don't want to end up at the back, because the last time we had a sprint race, I crashed at turn 1 at Qatar, and then I had to fight all the way back up to the podium. So I don't really want to do that again. So if I can qualify well, I want to qualify around top 6, and then just try to keep that position, and then just hope that there's a lot of chaos in the main race that can get me a lot more positions.
Well, it's a street circuit. Mad Dog says it was a lottery, but hopefully someone puts it all on papaya next week and you have a good race as well. Last Gen, thank you very much for joining us. P2 on track.
Yeah.
Now, those two we have a few question marks about. We have pending penalties to be taken back possibly, but someone we don't have questions about is our race winner around Singapore, Cameron Searle. Now, well, officially last week you were crowned champion in terms of the leaderboards, but this week I think it's beyond any doubt that you can put the crown back on your head, Cameron. Another P1 this season. I think it's 6 races now.
Six
It's
races,
6 races in a row now.
Oof.
I joked about it, but would you definitely compare yourself to Max Verstappen now in his 2023 season?
I'm going to go the 22 more because I have a 100% win versus DNF rate. I do not finish anywhere else, apparently. No, it's today's was close. It was more tyre management than pure pace. The hards were overheating that whole first stint, so yeah. And as you saw in quali, it was close on pace. So
yeah, I was going to ask about that quali. I mean, the time trials before, you put in a 1:27, and you sort of said, "Well, I'm not going to tell anyone about." But then you sort of broadcasted it to everyone with your final few laps. What was the sort of reaction after Joe got that close to getting you back? I think it was 5/1000th of a second.
The polite version was flaming hell, Joe. Yeah, no, I hadn't seen his time before, and then suddenly saw it on the page, the pop-up at the end, and yeah, that was mad. Then obviously with the jump start, having to watch the mirrors, he jumped me into turn 1. But yeah, it was just tyre temps. I think I got a run with DRS, and then yeah, it was just managing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great performance though from Singapore, having started off in a very good position at the moment, but very, very close though from one of the closest performances actually we've seen from you in recent memory. The last time was actually in Montreal, I believe. But you've won. You've now officially, I think we can officially crown you the championship now. So my question is, Las Vegas has too much, as like a little bit of the speed and a bit of the street circuits that we've seen in Singapore. So I'm curious, do you have a chance to make it 8 races in a row of win domination potentially? You've DNF'd back in Baku because of your, I said disconnection back then, but it was you collided back then. So how are you going to, would you say, change your fortunes for the final race in Las Vegas?
I think I'm not going to push too hard into turn 3 on the opening lap this time. Won't push on lap 1 and then see where it gets me.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations though. It was been absolutely amazing to see your performances here, and once again you continue to amaze us here in the commentary booth with your outstanding driving, and I'm sure Alistair can agree with me this one. Well, as boring as the domination it is, watching you has always been a treat.
Yeah, thanks very much, guys.
Yeah, no worries. Take care, Cameron.
The guy, if you bet on him, you'll actually lose money in Las Vegas. So I think next week, I think you're better off betting on him DNFing around a tricky street circuit. Then once again, everyone is not too excited for, because it is a tricky circuit. It's a very tricky balance to get right. It is a circuit that is flat out down the straight, but also quite a few tricky sections of low-speed corners that you need to get right through a few sections to make the most of the long straights. So next week, people are going to have to find that balance of having low downforce and having enough to get through the low-speed corners to make the most and have the speeds to fly onto the straights. So next week, like everyone says, it's going to be a gamble for all these drivers, but the one guy who's not going to be thinking there'll be a gamble about is Cameron. His spot in the championship is certain. He's won it tonight. He won it pretty much last week, so he can relax next week and just have a nice drive on the streets of Las Vegas. Enjoy the strip. But Ao, it's been a pleasure once again. Final thoughts on this Singapore Grand Prix?
Great action, I must say, from the departure that we've had from the European continent now. just a brief time here in Singapore has provided absolutely great street racing action that we have missed for so long. And honestly, heading into Las Vegas, the attention and the hype has never been any higher. Of course, Cameron still has effectively cemented his position now on the championship now. He can take it easy as he wants, but he'll probably will want for that record to continue his win streak up alive. And as well, down the further back, we've seen just what the remaining point scoring means to a lot of people for like Last Gen Newt and for Mad Dog. Mad Dog continues on his podium streak, and Last Gen Newt has gotten his best race result now in the BSUR as it stands. But still a lot of uncertainty though. But as you said before, in Las Vegas, it's all but a gamble though. And that slowly starts in next week, isn't it? So what do you think, Alistair? What would you say is your closing thoughts now on the Singapore circuit and what we can look forward to into Las Vegas?
I'm going to say there's going to be a new race winner next week. I'm going to bet against Cameron. I'm going to say that we're going to have a new race winner. I think Cameron might stick it into the wall, lose a bit of his front wing, has to pit. For some reason, I'm thinking we're going to have Joe. I think Joe's going to return to the top step. So early prediction, it's probably not going to happen, but I might as well throw a bit of a bombshell at the end of our program. BUSR, it's round 7. BUSR round 7 has come to a close. Singapore Grand Prix won by Cameron, but we still have Las Vegas next week. We'll see you for that.